Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I dive on into today's first look, I do want to mention if you enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as Drive-Thru RPG, and to do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, you get a small portion of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal or become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you'll find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Today, I'll be sharing a first look at the Art of Kobold Press from, you guessed it, Kobold Press. The 206-page hardcover is available now, carries an MSRP of $59.99. Having said that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Art of Kobold Press. A couple of things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Kobold Press were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this first look with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. Should also mention the format of this book is a bit larger than a standard role-playing game book. So here's Dungeons Deep, which has just come out from Kobold Press, and we will be taking a first look at this shortly. But as you can see, the Art of Kobold Press is a larger format. So let's take a look at the back. A visual history of Kobold Press. Presented for the first time in one beautiful volume, The Art of Kobold Press is an essential addition to the library of fantasy art lovers everywhere. Carefully curated by Kobold Press art director Mark Rattle, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, this collection features the best art from the past, present, and future of Kobold Press, created by some of the most celebrated fantasy artists in the business. Oh, here we go. More names for me to mispronounce, including Karen Yanner, William O'Brien, Eva Witterman, Aaron Miller, and more. More than a visual experience, the Art of Kobold Press is bursting with anecdotes, behind-the-scenes sketches, and commentary from Kobold Press staff. Discover how Kobold Press grew from one kobold in a trench coat to an entire team raising the black flag in a story told through the art and illustrations that fired our imaginations. Nice. First thing we're going to do is take a peek at the credits page, because we already know a lot of artists contributed to the various different releases from Kobold Press over the years. So let's give credit where credit is due. Looks like this is broken up into 3 sections. We got the early years, small but fierce, and then the valiant future. An introduction from Mark Rattle. So we have the early years. So early adventures. In the earliest days of the company, art was a challenge. The budgets were modest. The range of artists available was often students or early career folks. But we got incredibly lucky as well, working with people who went on to great artistic careers in fantasy art. For example, artists Aaron Miller, Florian Stitz, and Craig J. Spearing all painted important covers for adventures full of action and evoking pure fantasy. And they continue to work with Kobold Press 15 years later. And that's from my friend Wolfgang Bauer, the CEO of Kobold Press. Very cool. So this is Dwarves of the Iron Crags by David Wenzel. And this is Sunken Empires by Malcolm McClinton. And whenever I mispronounce somebody's name, I do apologize. I certainly don't mean any disrespect whatsoever. I remember this artwork. It's from Wrath of the River King. That is Florian Stitz. I shared a news piece when this came out. Very cool. This is Nevermore by Joe Shawcross. We've got Kobold Quarterly. The 4-year run of Kobold Quarterly was entirely in reaction to the end of Dragon magazine in September 2007. I had edited Dragon for a short time in the 90s. Okay, so obviously, it's Wolfgang Bauer, because I know who that would have been, and figured that a smaller company might do a fun D&D centric magazine. The cover art started with the iconic character who became the company's mascot, Jiro, a kobold explorer with a lantern who appeared on issue number 1. And this is the cover art for Kobold Quarterly 16 by Kieran Yanner. Deep Magic. Yes, I have shared coverage of Deep Magic. So this is the original Deep Magic cover. So that is the Pathfinder version of Deep Magic. That is Marcel Mercado. Early source books. Kobold Press produced many award-winning books in the early years, too many to highlight them all. But we can showcase some of the amazing art. So this is from Midgard Legends. Once again, this is also Kieran Yanner. And this is Your Whispering Homunculus by Jason Rainville. If you follow the Gaming Gang, you know I am a huge fan of the Midgard setting. I absolutely love the Midgard setting. It's one of my absolute favorite fantasy settings in role-playing games. Tome of Beasts. Tome of Beasts was our first major monster book, and it's the project that really made Kobold Press famous. The cover is by Marcel Mercado and features a terrifying void dragon emerging from the mist as 2 adventurers react in horror. That is the original book. I have shared coverage of Tome of Beasts 1. That is by Craig Spearing. The Midgard World Book. Yay! If you are not familiar with the Midgard setting, check out my review. I really, really dig this a ton, and I tell you why. Midgard and its art grew out of the need for a standard backdrop for all Kobold Press adventures, but getting there was not easy. That's the first cover for the campaign setting. And then that is the latest edition of Midgard. This is the original woodcut, which this is based on. You can kind of see the similarities there. That is Night, Death, and the Devil from 1504. Wow. That's pretty wild. So we're going to get some sketch examples. Creature Codex. We followed up Tome of Beasts with Creature Codex. At the time, we thought using a different name as opposed to Tome of Beasts 2 seemed like a good idea. Of course, we went on to call our next 2 monster books Tome of Beasts 2 and Tome of Beasts 3. Is having one of our monster books called Creature Codex alongside all those Tome of Beasts books a bit confusing? Absolutely. But back in the day, we had the Fiend Folio alongside various monster manuals, so I think we're in pretty good company. Nice. So that is the cover for Creature Codex. That is Craig J. Spearing. Some interior artwork by William O'Brien. Tales of the Old Margrave. I love that cover. I think that cover is excellent. And it is by Eric Belisle. Hopefully I'm close with that pronunciation. We got the Kobold Guides. One of the most fulfilling aspects of creating a book comes at the beginning, imagining what it can be before execution has even begun. This is partially true for the Kobold Guides, where the authors are free to write essays from their own perspectives rather than working from a detailed outline. And the blank canvas of the cover holds endless possibilities. That is Thomas M. Reed. The various different Kobold guides, such as to dungeons, to world building, to game mastering. We've got some more examples. Like I said, I think this artwork is awesome. Some people don't like this. I don't know why. Pretty wild. Ogre peed. Alpha fish. So dungeon maps. The dungeon maps for Scarlet Citadel stand out from others for two reasons. First, they aren't just dungeon maps. They're also tactical battle mats. A dungeon map needs to sprawl a bit and keep chambers far enough apart to be separate encounters. We don't want the echoing sound of the first clash to draw all the enemies on the level into one big, overwhelming fight. But a battle mat is limited in size to what can be printed on a commercial printer. For an entire dungeon level to fit on one or two battle mats, it needs to be compact. Those two requirements pull strongly against each other and are hard to balance, as you can see. And then these are the John Pintar maps. So that was Steve Winter. I'm finding this to be pretty cool. I like how we've got the various different notes and anecdotes and stuff. With the Southlands, when it came time for a cover art for the Southlands World Book, art director Mark Rattle reached out to the team for ideas to throw at the artist. By this point, Marcel had exceeded our expectations in every piece he'd done for us, and Mark was aiming to give Marcel some broad stroke ideas for the cover rather than a set, formal art brief. We went back and forth for a bit between a busy market scene that shows the varied cultures of Southlands or a heroic scene that draws viewers into the unique world. We ultimately settled on a heroic scene as we wanted game masters and players to see the cover and think, I want to play in that world. Don't worry, plenty of market and city street illustrations appear throughout the book. And of course, we also have City of Cats and Tales Beneath the Sands. I don't have that. I've got both of these. I don't have that. And this is Megan Marisol. Some more cover art, some more individual character artwork. Here we've got, this must be Warlock, right? Yes, because I saw the black and white. From 2017 to 2022, Kobold Press produced Warlock, a wonderful little zine which featured a wealth of content for the Midgard campaign setting. One of my favorite things about Warlock was that it was a black and white publication, which meant all the art was in that awesome old school black and white pen and ink style I fell in love with when I was a kid. That is senior editor Scott Gable. Give an example to some of that. Larry Elmore, Justine Jones, Jeff Easley, Carl Waller, the Zobek Gazetteer. That is another book that I do not have. I think that's an older volume too. Some more character artwork. As far as the paper stock, it's actually a little bit thicker than what we normally see from Kobold Press, which is actually what I would expect, seeing that this is an art book. This is not a role-playing game book. Here we go, Zobek Clockwork City. So we got the free city of Zobek. The brief we sent to artist Ellen Morris was fairly simple. Members of the City Watch, a human and a gear forged, wearing chainmail armor and red cloaks, are trying to subdue an angry and or drunken dwarf ring wizard emerging from a building. They are in Zobek, a fantasy medieval city with architecture like Prague or Budapest, especially the red tile roofs. And that's what we get. Countess of Garlands. Great adventures require great art. Here's just a sampling of the strongest adventure covers from Kobold Press. The Ratatosk cover by Florian Stintz is full of movement and action as the grave squirrel warrior folks defend the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree. We have Rise of the Mimic Moon. Ah, that is pretty sweet. All right. Wastes of Chaos, or at least the Chaos books. I want to say that's Wastes of Chaos. Here we've got the covers for the 2-volume set of Deep Magic. Prepared, which I, of course, have reviewed. The Prepared series is a set of Dungeons and Dragons adventures written by John Sawartzky, featuring cartography by his friend Mishan Cantrell. The idea was that each adventure would be playable in a single night and with a single map. And yes, there's the Goblin Dib. There's like a series of adventures. It's kind of a recurring villain, which I like quite a lot. Now we get into Tales of the Valiant, Player's Guide, Monster Vault, the Playtest Alpha. I recognize just about every one of these pieces of art. Caverns of the Spore Lord. The very first Tales of the Valiant adventure, Caverns of the Spore Lord, was an excellent chance to update the visual look and feel for our adventures. This was the start of a new, consistent look for all Tales of the Valiant adventure covers, as well as a new way to present the information in the adventure's pages. For the cover of this very first TOV adventure, Kiki Mak Rizki produced both the cover art and many of the interior illustrations. Sweet. The Game Master's Guide, The Sunken Pyramid. These are all pretty recent. They're all Tales of the Valiant, which, of course, obviously enough, you can also utilize with Dungeons and Dragons. Labyrinth Adventures, which I recently reviewed, as well as the Labyrinth World Book or World Guide. Trying to remember the title to it. The Old Margrave, also reviewed this. Riverbank RPG. I have not had an opportunity to take a peek at this. I don't think it's out in print yet. I think this is still in PDF. There was a successful crowdfunding run. When Wolfgang first discussed this project with me, I was a bit apprehensive. I am a wizards and dragons, lightsabers and starships, superhero comics kind of guy. A cozy RPG about cute animals drinking tea was very much out of my comfort zone, although I certainly love a good cup of Earl Grey. We knew that this project would require new artists that worked in the charming watercolor style that fits the aesthetic of a cozy game like this. Sweet. So I was going to say, is that how we wrap up? But I guess not. Got more prepared. Yes, I have covered that. Almost looks like an alien xenomorph. Here's Necromancer, the new card game from Kobold Press. You're going to get into Monster Vault 2. I think that's what we got. Yep, right there. I will have a review of Monster Vault 2 in the very near future. I haven't finished reading it yet. Then we got the Player's Guide 2, which is not out yet. I think that's what we'll wrap up with. Yep. All right. Sweet. And then, of course, we've got The Art of Kobold Press cover. Very nice. Once again, this is the Art of Kobold Press. It is available now. The 206-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $59.99. Once again, as I pointed out early in the video, I really dig the art from Kobold Press. Always fantastic. All right, that is it for this time out. If you liked the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.